Ah, the spy. Nypheus Backstabicus, also known as the class with the infamous ability to avoid death itself. But what if I told you that was not always the case? Now take a trip back in time with me to the 21st of May 2009 as I tell you about...
You never see it coming. You see that my mind is the best for right.
Hi, I'm Ihasnotomato. You may remember me as my role as Jimmy from HR Pufnstuf. And indeed, yes, the sniper update was cut short by none other than the spy himself, as he decided to cut in on the update and take it over for himself. And look, I've said this so many times, but I cannot even begin to explain the amount of crazy gosh dang hype this brought. Seriously, nobody expected this. Well, they kind of did, but I'll get into that later. Because up until this point, the idea of having a joint update between two classes was completely unheard of. What we thought was just going to be another regular-sized update, we would instead be essentially getting a double-sized update with a side of fries and a small Coke as well, please. The hype was unbelievable, but, of course, without further ado, Philip DeFranco reference. Day 4 of the now Spy update brought us not one, but 2 new spy items. Holy gosh dang heckaroony, this update just went from good to great. No, great to really great. On this day we were introduced to the spy's other 2 watches that he is now known for, the Cloak and Dagger and the Dead Ringer. Of course, one is infinitely more notorious than the other, and hoo boy, I got a lot to say about that. But first, let's talk about the Cloak and Dagger. I feel like this watch nowadays is quite overlooked. Like, sure it has its purposes, but back in the day, it was amazing. The mere thought of being able to be theoretically invisible forever felt amazingly OP. Of course, you would have to sit in the corner forever to get the most out of it, but for my old wait for your moment, and then wait some more style that I had for my spy, this item was a game changer. In fact, if I recall correctly, I barely touched Spy before this moment, as he felt too advanced for me back then. So it really was a nice introductory tool to give for new players, and I respect it for that. Now the Dead Ringer on the other hand, this was a tool that was targeted at more advanced players of the Spy, and my goodness did this one take a while to get used to. You see, nowadays you are conditioned as a TF2 player to suspect any Spy of potentially using this and still being alive after you've supposedly killed them. But when it first came in, it was nightmarish to adjust yourself to this new mindset. I mean, most people were only just getting used to the idea of having to constantly check your teammates in behind you, and now you can't even be sure if the French ding dong is dead. Oh, merde. And oh my goodness, has this thing had a history. Oh golly, it's been fiddled with, reworked, unworked, reworked, and refiddled with, and people still aren't satisfied with it. It's actually really hard to formulate a history for this thing as a result, but as I recall and understand it, when it first came out, it couldn't be recharged by ammo sources, it had a shorter cloak time, it was louder, I don't think you had increased movement speed while it was activated, and I also think it gave less resistance when cloaked. Honestly, it's so hard to piece it together, but I guess that's just what happens when you introduce a complicated item such as this, as even 10 years later people are still discussing its potential changes in viability and all that jazz. Personally, while I'm not a huge fan to fight against it as a pyro main, I have always praised it as being one of, if not the most creative items in TF2. While there are many items I still love and enjoy, I personally don't think that any item has topped the Dead Ringer in its creative concept. Seriously, it's really flippin' clever. With all that being said, this page itself has a few fun things to it, such as the scene that we see here is an exact response to the day before's page, kind of painting a narrative here, which is really neat. Additionally, of course, the page is composed of a Manco magazine snippet displaying a bunch of items, all of which are a blast to read through. I highly recommend you do so yourself, including a fascinating advertisement for the camera beard, which at this point would not actually be added to the game for a little while yet. Ugh. On day 5 we were introduced to the majesty that is Meet the Spy, which of course spawned many memes such as
"No, that would be your mother.
And
now he's here to us.
And
See? Red!
And I shouldn't have to explain why Meet the Spy is so awesome. However, you may notice that on this page, along with the Spy's new introduced achievements, there was one additional achievement that Valve themselves got, which reads, "Welcome to the Internet. Fail to understand what private means on YouTube." Now this came about due to a peculiar oversight from the TF2 team. You see, whenever they post a new video, they like to upload it a day or two earlier, make it private, and then make it public when it's ready. However, due to a weird bug at the time, people on iPhones were somehow able to see the video regardless of its private condition, which of course led it being leaked all over the internet in no time flat. And yes, even I stumbled upon it prematurely, thinking it was just some excellent fan-made creation for some reason. Either way, the video was released the next day, coupled with the new achievement and an adjustment to the video itself. Where originally here it had written lost memory, it was replaced with leaked video. All things considered, it was only leaked a day early, so it wasn't a huge deal, but props to the TF2 team for owning up for it, despite it not really being their fault in my opinion. I mean, I'm sure that iPhone bug probably caused a lot of strife back in the day. Whew. On day 6, we were blessed with the Ambassador, a weapon that much like the Dead Ringer has seen its fair share of changes, but unlike the Dead Ringer, it's a bit simpler to describe how it once was, as it wasn't until recently that it received its huge changes. Back then, it was as simple as they came, at the cost of a minus 15% damage penalty and a 20% slower firing speed, and also no random critical hits. You had the ability to headshot people, which was funny as it was a direct counter to the Razorback, which was a direct counter to the Spy, which he also got in this very update. Which is another reason I'm not a huge fan of the Razorback, but I digress. Nowadays, of course, they made one major change that was the addition of damage fall off, essentially disabling the ability for the Spy to become a sniper, as they could no longer headshot those at long range. Now this, of course, is a difficult topic to get into as there is some tension in regards to this change, but personally, I'm not a Spy main and I'm going to stay in my lane on this one, and not really give an opinion because, honestly, I don't really have one. So, yeah. Day 7 of the Spy update rolls around and oh BAM! The sniper's back at it with a full bladder ready to burst. Yes indeed, this was the first official point where the update became known as the Sniper vs Spy update, and what better way to cap it off than with the introduction of man's best friend, a jar of piss. The jar-based karate, also known as Jarate, also came coupled with this neat little comic explaining the item in all its glory. Now there's a couple of things to mention here. The first thing is that with Jarate also came the first ever instance of mini-crits to the game. Yeah, up until now they weren't a thing, but here they are.
There he is!
Additionally, you may be thinking that adding a literal jar of piss to the game would cause the community to go crazy, and it did, but the craziness was multi-layered. You see, on top of the mere addition of the sniper's bodily fluids, players were also sideswiped by this thing's rumoured existence. You see, over a month before the update was announced, the TF2 team put up a teaser for what they were working on for the game. This specific image depicting the Jarate. So you might expect that players wouldn't be surprised by its addition, considering they literally already told us about it. And that would have been true if it wasn't for the fact that they uploaded it on April Fool's Day. Those sly dogs, I absolutely love it. You can't complain because technically they already told you about it over a month ago. Also sniper achievements were added, yeah. And finally we come to release day where we get this delightful little poster. Blood Feud in the Badlands, the Sniper vs Spy update. The Adelaide Assassin, the High Llama of Head Trauma, the Sniper, and the Duke of Spook, the Prime Minister of Sinister, the Spy. Not on TV, not on the radio, only on Steam. Now that is an amazing way to do an update. Seriously, this was what was considered a jam-packed update back in the day. Like, what else could they possibly give us this day? Wait, hold on, what's this? Oh golly gee. Oh me, oh my. Now I know what you might be thinking. Nowadays, hats are a dime a dozen. Every dang update gets shipped with at least 20 new cosmetics, but these bad boys? Oh boy, these are special. You see, these aren't just any everyday run-of-the-mill hats that your grandpa wears. No sirree Bob. These hats, ladies and gentlemen, are the first ever hats ever added into Team Fortress 2. The video game known for its stylish hat-based gameplay. While I know it's hard to imagine a world so dark, or perhaps so bright, because you know, hats, they cover your head from the sun. I'm getting off topic. But yes, this was the introduction to hats to the game. And I want you guys to take special notice of this page because it's far more elusive than it may appear. While you can clearly see these happy-go-lucky and not so happy-go-lucky mercenaries donning these brand new items we had never even dreamed of before, nowhere on this page does it actually go into detail about them. Seriously, when I first saw this, I didn't even know what I was looking at. I presumed it was some weird joke, but after a while, they started to pop up in-game. Every now and then, if you were so blessed you could bear witness to someone wearing one of these elusive hats, and believe you me, you were the talk of the whole dang server. I remember having an actual conversation at school with a friend of mine one day, trying to explain to them this magical phenomenon I bore witness to, and he didn't believe me at the time.
I mean, if you told me that, I'd more than likely call you a liar and walk away, and find some place to get ice cream to replenish the innocence you blackened with your filthy deceits. I like strawberry.
Now obviously eventually information started coming out about these secret new items. Firstly, there was only 9 of them, one unique hat for each class, and those hats were the Batter's helmet, the Soldier's stash, the Pyro's beanie, the Demo Man's throw, the Football helmet, the Mining light, the Prussian prickle hold, I don't know how to say it, please don't judge me, the Trophy belt, and the Fancy fedora. Now these 9 hats may actually ring a bell to you newer players. Where have you heard that before? Well, on January 10th, 2013, which is actually longer ago than I thought, those 9 hats became the first, and so far only items in the game to become retired. Meaning they no longer exist in the Manco store, they could no longer be unboxed as unusuals, they can't be crafted anymore, and can no longer be found via the drop system. Which, to be honest, I never really got why they did this, but in a sense they are much rarer now than they are when they first came out. Kinda, as back then there was only one way to obtain them, which was via the newly added in this update, drop system, as an incredibly rare item to get as a random drop. In fact, hats are still super rare to get as a random drop, but of course now it barely makes a difference considering how many there are, but back then, having a hat at all made you the knees of bees. So if you have one of these hats, consider yourself to be a person who has one of these hats. Well done, I guess. Oh, and also Hoodoo was announced on this day, which is a good map. I give it a 5. You can decide out of what. Whew, well, there you have it, folks. The Sniper vs. Spy update. This one was a long one in the making. Seriously, the tales I could tell you that happened behind the scenes. Gee willikers. No, seriously, it was just utter madness at some points. But it's here now. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did, and I remember having the best time with this update. I honestly consider it to be one of, if not my favorite update to this day, just because of all the memories and the hype surrounding it. All that being said, my next TF2 video will be a weapon review before I get into the next big update history. And I would also really like to thank TFG, who came to me in my hour of need and essentially allowed me to record all the Pipeline footage that you saw today, because Pipeline is a map that is very difficult to get on, but luckily he was able to help me out. We got a server together, we got some people together, and we had a good time. We just played some Pipeline, and I really appreciate that. So thank you very much to TFG. If you didn't see in my The Future video, I'm also going to be uploading videos about other video games after this, so I hope you stick with me with those. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and remember to give your grandma a kiss, okay, dearie? Mwah.